Morning, good afternoon, good evening. Yesterday, I did a video in which I was commenting on what Prince Mashele of South Africa was saying about the need for people. In this case, he was talking about South Africans, the need for South Africans to fight for a better South Africa, and how failure to do so could easily lead to South Africa becoming what has become what we know about Zimbabwe. South Africa will become another Zimbabwe, a failed state. The video led to the discussion of how Zanu PF has ridden roughshod over the people of Zimbabwe, denying them their fundamental rights, including the right to a meaningful say in the governance of the country. And in it, I also discussed why we have failed to end the Zanu PF dictatorship in the last 45 years. And that invariably had to include the fact that we had many golden opportunities to end the Zanu PF dictatorship, the best of which was, of course, during the 2008 to 2013 GNU. And that our friends in the opposition, MDC, sold out. The people of Zimbabwe have sacrificed everything to elect them into power on the understanding that once in power, they'll deliver the changes the nation has been dying for all these years. That has triggered the usual suspect to respond. And this is just one of the response from one of those, the usual suspect, in which he's talking about violence in South Africa and how Ruto has used brute force to stop people protesting the misrule in that country. And in Zimbabwe, he argues, it is not fear but lack of unity. Now, how could we be united when guns are pointing at us? Mukori, you know what should be done right, but you waste our time telling us rhetorical stories, playing broken records of old scripts, spreading vendetta, and so on and so forth, and so etc., etc. I find this disappointing. What we are seeing here from the MDC leaders and their supporters is a repeat what we have seen from Zanu PF this last 45 years. Instead of addressing the issues raised, they want, in the first instance, to use all manner of excuses, scapegoats, to justify their own failures or corruption or downright betrayal. The issues I have raised here and on a number of other occasions regarding MDC CCC is that they had the golden opportunity to implement the democratic reforms. And they failed to implement even one token reform. The gentleman here does not address any of those issues. He wants to blame it on how could we deliver the changes when they're pointing guns at us. That's nonsense. During the GNU, Zanu PF, Robert Mugabe, bribed the MDC leaders with the trappings of high office. The E-Class Mercedes-Benz for the ministers and deputy ministers, the two deputy prime ministers, and the prime minister Tsvangirai himself, very generous salaries and allowances, a US $4 million mansion for Morgan Tsvangirai, etc., etc. And they forgot about implementing the reforms. That is the truth. Zanu PF cronies during the GNU boasted that must be an AMDC when they were asked, why are MDC not implementing any reforms? And yet each time we address that issue, the MDC leaders and their apologists want to tell us, how could we do that when they're pointing guns at us? Who was pointing a gun at the MDC leaders? Since when did an E-Class Mercedes-Benz become a gun? Why don't you address the issues? Towards the end of the GNU, SADC realized that the reforms had not been implemented. They called a special SADC summit in Mozambique in June 2018, in which they told Morgan Tsvangirai and his MDC friends to their faces that we should not go into these elections without reforms, because Zanu PF will rig them. They didn't listen. They went ahead and participated in those reforms. They knew the process was flawed. They knew that participating would only give Zanu PF legitimacy. I've often quoted this account from David Coulthard's book, in which David Coulthard readily confesses that they participated in these flawed elections, knowing fully well that the process was flawed. But they went ahead anyway, out of greed. The quotation, as you can read it on the screen there, is that the worst aspect for me, this is David Coulthard, about the failure to agree a coalition was that both MDCs could not do the obvious, withdraw from the elections. They could not agree to a coalition in which they would all do the right thing, i.e., do not participate in these flawed and illegal elections, which they knew the only logical step to do was to withdraw. But when they failed to agree on a coalition, they feared that if they don't participate, the other side would, and they would go on to win some of the seats. They knew Zanu PF was giving away a few of the gravy train seats, and that is what they could not resist. It really is disappointing how the opposition refused to address the real big issues and instead resort to dirty tactics of, first of all, finding scapegoats or some other feeble excuse for participating. And if that fails, they resort to abusing those who dare hold them to account, just as Zanu PF. Zanu PF learned even as early as before independence that it can cow down all its critics by calling them sellouts. But Tenges, there was nothing that instilled fear in the ordinary Zimbabwean during the War of Independence than to be called a sellout. Because they knew that if you are called a sellout, you could be in serious trouble. Many people lost their lives during the War of Independence because they were judged to be sellouts. But I guess by a kangaroo court. After independence, Zanu PF continued with that. All their critics were called puppets. Was seeking regime change on behalf of their white masters. So the right to fight for free, fair, and credible elections was now considered to be those who are fighting for it, they are fighting for regime change on behalf of the whites. Why are the whites to come into it? In the video I was referring to by Prince Mashele, one of the most important points he makes in that video is that Zimbabwe was not destroyed by foreigners. Zanu PF and its apologists, MDC, CCC, destroyed Zimbabwe. And yet the minute you try to say we want free, fair, and credible elections, you're accused of speaking on behalf of your masters, the West. And yet, the right to a meaningful say in the governance of the country had always been at the heart of our fight for independence. One man, one vote. And yet, when it just doesn't suit Zanu PF, that is discarded with contempt. This is one of the tragedies of Africa. We keep going round and round in circles because we don't want to face reality. One of the key issues here is holding MDC leaders to account. And instead of them accepting that they are accountable to the people, they are turning around and accusing or those who are holding them to account, accusing them of being CIOs or worse, just as Zanu PF had done in the past. So we are back to square one. Zanu PF would be history if MDC leaders had not sold out. This is the reality that the people of Zimbabwe have got to deal with and accept. And the Zanu PF dictatorship, we are not going to end it until we have a competent opposition that is prepared to implement the democratic reforms designed to stop Zanu PF rigging the elections. And so those who are serious about changing Zimbabwe, you cannot avoid having to deal with the problem of an opposition that has become Zanu PF Team B in all but name, playing for Team B, for Team A to win, and for Team A to have legitimacy. This is the reality. This is the political reality. Here is Margaret Dongo, one of the few other Zimbabweans who have had the courage to hold MDC, CCC leaders to account.
Politics is not a business. This is what I want to remind most of our MPs and other people.
Do you think they look at it as a business?
Yes, they look at it as a business. Because they look at it as a business seriously. Because the moment they go, business and employment creation, because if they go to parliament, you are employed. You get a car, you get a stable salary, and you are paid until your term is over. Already you are employed. If you are out, you're out of employment.
If you serve 2 terms, you get a pension?
You get a pension. Then already, this is why people kill in politics. They kill to be in parliament. This is why we have violence in this country. Because there is no employment. The only employment which is there is in politics. There is no other outside employment. So for them, a very good example is, look at what happened to CCC, the CCC party. Have a look. When they lost, when they said they were rigged, what I expected from them, I expected all parliamentarians to say, we are not going to go to participate in a rigged system. And we are not going to sit in a rigged parliament. Because the elections have been rigged. So all of us were not going to parliament. Imagine what could have happened. We could have gone into new elections. There's no way Zanu PF was going to roll alone.
You think so?
Yes.
Do they care?
Caring or not caring, the public would have forced them, because the majority of the people would want representation in parliament.
But they went anyway?
But they went. They realized that, you heard them complain, I used my own money to be in parliament. But what about me who have voted for you? I used my own money. So the idea is to recover. Is it a business where you want to recover your losses? Is it a business? Politics, is it a business where everyone else, when you get in parliament, you want to recover your losses? A good example is now, parliament.
The truth of the matter is, MDC, CCC leaders have failed to implement even one democratic reform in the last 25 years because of greed. It's as simple as that. This whole issue that Zanu PF was holding a gun at us is nonsense. Mugabe bribed the MDC leaders, and they've been participating in these flawed elections out of greed. No one held a gun to Chamisa's head when he went up and down the country in 2018 and then 2023, telling people that he had plugged all the vote rigging loopholes to stop Zanu PF rigging the elections. Chamisa knew he was lying. Chamisa knew that without a verified voters roll, for instance, it will be impossible to stop Zanu PF rigging the elections because opportunities are so many. Indeed, this whole issue of stopping Zanu PF rigging the elections, he knew was a lost cause. And this is why he did not even do even one of the most basic things, deploy election agencies at all polling stations. He had the money. He pocketed the money. He didn't want to waste it. He knew the election process was flawed. Zanu PF was rigging. The biggest danger is that Chamisa and company are gearing to con people to participate in 2028 to give Zanu PF legitimacy out of greed and perpetuate the dictatorship. We have the duty to stop it. I find it ridiculous that if we cannot hold Chamisa and these howling monkeys brigade, because some of them, they are the howling monkeys, all right. You say anything critical of Chamisa, they will drown you out. So if we cannot hold Chamisa and these howling monkeys brigade to democratic account, and all they have is threats and noise to silence us, what hope do we have of holding Zanu PF, Mnangagwa, and these Zanu PF thugs to democratic account? Because they have the gun to back them up. We can end the Zanu PF dictatorship. We don't have to confront Zanu PF, Mnangagwa, and these Zanu PF thugs. We only have to make sure that as much as they can rig the elections, they do not get legitimacy. And we can deny them legitimacy by making sure that people do not participate in these flawed elections. And we can stop that happening by stopping Chamisa and his cronies, conning people to participate in flawed elections. We have got a way out. We have got a way of ending this Zanu PF dictatorship. We just need to apply it, to use our head. I absolutely refuse to be intimidated by Chamisa and his howling brigade. into failing to hold them to account. If we had a competent opposition and they had implemented the democratic reforms, Zanu PF would no longer be in power. After 25 years of MDC CCC, if they had implemented the reforms, Zanu PF would not be in power. That is the truth. So the challenge is, why are Zanu PF? Why have we failed to get a competent opposition? Because they are intimidating us into silence. We are not allowed to say Chamisa and company failed. We are not allowed to say that Chamisa and company lied about winning the 2023 elections. Well, I say it. He did lie. That was a blatant lie. I just conclude with Chamisa posting that he was going to win the 2023 elections. Hashtag God is in it. God's plans do not fail. God was not in it. Let's be honest. Chamisa was lying.
Makorokoto Zimbabwe nokuti hakuna munhu anomira kana denga raronga plan. Denga raronga plan, denga harifo iri. Plan ya Mwari haifo iri. Ini ndatanga kugadzira cabinet. There is no way we are not going to form a new cabinet. There is no way we are not going to have a celebration. There is no way we are not going to have an inauguration. Let's start preparing for our inauguration. Let's start preparing for our celebration.
He was lying. And this is one of the few occasions that Chamisa was taken to task for his lies. And it's not surprising that it is a foreign media. None of our own local Zimbabweans have ever taken Chamisa to task for lying. Even now, because they are afraid of the howling monkeys brigade.
Ende patakasangana na Trump akatibvunza navakomana, mari yamuri kuda kuti nyika ifambe imari.
Serious questions were raised about your behaviour in Washington, D.C. You did see some senior people on Capitol Hill, some Congress people, but you also claimed that you'd seen Donald Trump. You claimed you had a conversation with him in which you said he asked you how much you needed to move the country forward. You told him $15 billion, and he said to you that he would provide the money if you won the election. That was not true, was it?
Sangana na Trump akatibvunza navakomana, mari yamuri kuda kuti nyika ifambe imari.
It was not true that you'd seen Donald Trump and that Donald Trump indicated to you that he would provide, if you won the election, $15 billion.
All those statements were said by other people, not what I said.
Akasangana na Trump akatibvunza navakomana, mari yamuri kuda kuti nyika ifambe imari.
Well, no, because there is a video which shows you at a rally in January back home in Zimbabwe saying that Donald Trump had pretty much promised you $15 billion. To be clear, because some people in Zimbabwe are still confused, you're now telling me you did not meet Donald Trump.
We did not.
Well, he did not. And that is a fact. We really need to grow up as a nation. We need to hold our leaders to account. If we cannot hold Chamisa to account, and he doesn't have the coercive force of Zanu PF thugs? What chance do we have of holding Zanu PF thugs to account? Think about it. Have a good day.